Welcome to r/Bestof Redditor Updates, where OP's wife meets his girlfriend. Our next Reddit post is from r/. Off My Chest. Today, my wife met my girlfriend. I'm a 32-year-old man and a widow. My wife passed away from pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. She was forced to leave behind our 2 kids, a 10-year-old boy and 7-year-old boy. My wife was the absolute light of my life. We were high school sweethearts, went to the same college, and got married right after graduation. We were inseparable. Every day, I fell more in love with her. It was like my heart was living outside my body. When she passed, the amount of pain I was in was indescribable. I prayed to go to sleep and not wake up, just so I could see her one last time. I contemplated meeting her, but every time I was ready, my kids would look at me. They had her face, her personality, her DNA. I couldn't leave them. They were all I had left of her. It took years before I was able to function normally again. I even quit my job and lived off of savings and her life insurance for about a year. I was half the dad I used to be and only a fraction of my former self. 2 years after her passing, I decided enough was enough and I kicked myself into gear. I found a job in a different city closer to my parents. I packed my kids up and I moved. Life was hard, but I kept chugging along and eventually I found some joy. A year after moving, I took a business trip to New York where I met my current girlfriend, Lisa. While I acknowledged there was chemistry, I told her I was already married and she understood. However, a few months later, I had to go back to New York where we met up again. I let my guard down for the first time around her. Before I knew it, she was putting in a transfer from my home branch and moving to my city. I fell in love with her and asked her out a year ago next month. My kids adore her, and though she reminded them that she'll never take their mom's place, they lovingly call her Mama L. Today was the anniversary of my wife's passing, an extremely hard day for all of us. This morning, I walked into the living room to find Lisa and my kids waiting for me. The kids were dressed in their church clothes with goofy smiles on their faces and bouquets in hand. Apparently, Lisa came up with the idea of a picnic at my wife's grave, an idea that the boys loved as they enjoy going to see their mom. While I was sleeping, they prepared food and flowers, then insisted on wearing their best clothes. I'll admit that I cried at the sight of them. I don't know how I got this lucky twice in a row. I wanted my wife to meet this amazing woman, so I asked Lisa to come along and she did. The day that I dread every year turned out to be a humbling reminder of the reason why I stayed on this planet. To my lovely wife, you can never be replaced, but she's good to me and she takes care of our kids like you would. Thank you for sending her to me. Then, 1 month later, OP posted an update. I already had a profound appreciation for my girlfriend before I made that post, but the comments gave me an entirely new perspective. The night after I made that post, I took my girlfriend out to dinner, and I can't explain it, but the light that I was viewing her in was different. Everything she did that night gave me butterflies. She was showing me pictures that she took at the aquarium with my oldest, and I couldn't stop staring at her. In that moment, I came to the conclusion that I was going to propose a lot sooner than I expected. A few days later, I went ring shopping with her mom, who was very excited, and we found the perfect ring. I then made a reservation at our favorite restaurant for last Friday and set the big day in motion. Long story short, I'm getting married again. I am excited to start this journey with her and my amazing kids. As I've said before, I'm so lucky. Our next Reddit post is from Relationship Advice. For context, about 24 years ago, I was sexually assaulted by a close friend of mine and got pregnant by the encounter. I was inconsolable for months after the event. To make matters worse, I found out that I was pregnant at about 20 weeks, and where I lived at the time, it was illegal to get an abortion after the first trimester. My husband had really been my rock and my support during that time, and I don't know how I would have ended up if not for him. He said that I could put the baby up for adoption, or I could keep the child and he would raise it like our other children. I decided to not give it up for adoption, but raising the kid was hard. I'm half Polish, half German, and he's half German, half Russian. We both have pale skin, light hair, and blue eyes, as well as being fairly tall. However, our daughter, Luna, is short, has dark hair, and a brown complexion like her biological father. I often heard snide remarks about me being an unfaithful wife because it was obvious that she was not my husband's child. It was especially hard for me when Luna was young because she looked so much like her dad. My husband took care of my daughter most of the time since I had bad flashbacks whenever I saw her face from when I was assaulted. As she grew up, it died down a bit, but I would still get these horrible panic attacks when I saw her wearing boys' clothes and short hair. Since I was prone to having panic attacks, Luna ended up being closer to my husband than she was to me. Also, she ended up getting a little more love than her siblings did from my husband as some sort of compensation because of me. We never told her that she was the product of sexual assault because I was too ashamed, and my husband didn't want her feeling different from her siblings. I often told her that me and her biological father got into an altercation and never spoke to one another ever again. About 2 years ago, she got one of those DNA test items and found out that she had a relative in the system. This relative got Luna in touch with her biological dad, and they started talking despite my protests. He apparently wanted to speak to me about something that he wanted to tell me, so Luna attempted to persuade me to speak with him. I made her aware that me and her father shouldn't ever be in the same room together. Now, Luna is getting married to a lovely young man. The original plan was to have my husband walk her down the aisle, but he's gotten into a bad accident, leaving him in a wheelchair until his legs are strong enough to support his weight again. However, this is not Luna's idea of a picture-perfect wedding day, so she invited her biological father to have the honor of being the bride's father. Her wedding invitation not only invited my assaulter, but she totally disrespected the man who raised her. Although I or a bridesmaid could have pushed my husband down the aisle, she thinks that it wouldn't fit the vibe of the wedding. My husband looked so shocked and upset that she wouldn't even think of this, but I was furious. I have a visceral hate for that man, and I let her know that I wouldn't be anywhere near him. She told me that this is what she wants, and there's no changing her mind, so I told her that I will not be attending if he's there. She got upset and told me that I shouldn't hang on to the past, but I laid it into her that she doesn't know what happened between me and her biological father, so she shouldn't stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Though I feel terrible about what I said and how I said it, I can't be blamed for her being born or not knowing what happened since I never told her. I still feel as though my wishes should be respected if I say I don't want to be in the same room as someone. I'm now okay with her contacting her father. I just don't want anything to do with him. Also, it's rude to replace your father with another man who you've barely known for 2 years because of something that he couldn't control. Then OP posted an update. After reading all the advice that I'd gotten, I decided that I should stop running away and tell Luna everything. I first apologized for yelling at her for her suggestion because, in her mind, it was an innocent suggestion. I told her that I wasn't angry at her, but how fast she was willing to replace her father because he's in a wheelchair. And that anger was compounded because she brought up her genetic father. I apologized again for acting childish and not like an adult. She asked me why I'm so against her genetic father being in the same vicinity as I am, and I just told her everything from our initial friendship to her forced conception. She didn't believe me, like some Redditors predicted, but I can get a copy of the records of the court case and offer them to her if she needed a look. She looked stunned, like she wanted to believe me, but couldn't. I apologized for keeping all of this from her because I didn't know how to bring it up. She told me that she didn't believe me and she would confirm it with her genetic father, so I told her to take the time she needed to process all this. Later that day, she came to me again, crying and apologizing for not believing me. I held her and cried and apologized too. It was kind of therapeutic. We had a long chat and I did feel closer to her. When we were done, she said that she wanted to take me out to a surprise to help me feel better in a couple of days, which I happily agreed to. I went to see her yesterday in this little restaurant with a patio that had a private pay-for-use area for a maximum of 4 people. As she ran up to me and gave me a hug, she led me to the patio where her biological father stood. She told me that he was here to apologize and start my healing journey. I wanted to leave, but he grabbed my hand and all those memories I tried to repress just came back out. I started having a panic attack and lost my balance, so he tried to help me keep my balance, which worsened everything. I honestly don't remember how I left, but I ended up in my car just sobbing. I called my oldest son to pick me up because I wasn't fit to drive at that moment. Today, my daughter called me upset that I ruined her surprise, but I was extremely upset with her. I asked her why she did that when she knows everything that happened between me and him, and she tried to use the excuse of my healing journey, but I wasn't having it. She admitted that she wanted me to get used to him because he's going to be walking her down the aisle along with my husband and doing the daddy-daughter dance. I told her that while I loved her and respect her decision to be with him, I'm not willing to be anywhere that he is. She started complaining about how she wants all of her family to be there, and I'm still not forgiving, but I hung up the phone. My husband is aware of everything and stands by me not going to her wedding, but I don't want this. If my other children were to know about this, they would stand by me and tell the rest of their extended family, which is going to lead to my daughter getting disowned by the family. Then OP posted an update. I'd like to share some good news before going on about what happened with my daughter. My husband is able to walk again, albeit with a cane, though it is progress. We've been going to physical therapy to help strengthen his legs after the accident. It's good to see him happy and walking again. I've also been to therapy and met this wonderful and sweet therapist. My therapist is so patient and kind. Since my husband and I started together a few weeks ago, she's been extremely helpful. Like most of you advised, my therapist also advised me to tell my other kids about what went on with my youngest. For reference, I have 3 other kids, a 30-year-old man, a 27-year-old girl, and a 27-year-old boy. My oldest boy is the only one that had a slight idea of what happened, but the other 2 were left unaware. I was quite scared and anxious to tell them what happened, especially because my mother and other family members initially reacted negatively. I invited them over around 2 weeks ago for a family dinner and told them everything that happened with the conception of my youngest to what happened recently. They were all silent and stared at me, so I became a little nervous until my daughter started crying. It was so upsetting for her, and my 2 sons were pissed off at my youngest and her father. They asked why I didn't tell them earlier, and I told them I was just scared of how they would have reacted. My husband took them out of the dining room to talk, while my eldest daughter just cried together. When my boys and husband came back, they apologized for leaving early and left. My eldest daughter wanted to spend the night with me, but early in the morning, she left with her brothers to do whatever. I didn't hear anything from them until last Wednesday. I was on Facebook when I saw my eldest daughter's post calling out my younger daughter for not only ignoring the man who raised her, but siding with her mother's R-wordist and re-traumatizing her. My boys made similar posts as well, dragging her name through the mud. I had so many direct messages, but I didn't want anything to do with them, so I deleted the app off my phone. Since I don't like people knowing about my personal life, I asked my kids to take down the post. They said they did, but I haven't re-downloaded the app to find out. My youngest daughter's fiance came to my house with his mother to apologize. He told me he broke off the engagement because he couldn't be with someone who treated their parents like that. His mother let me know how disgusted she was with my daughter's actions, and someone like that would never be a part of her family. I was honestly stunned by all the support that I've received. It's one thing to receive support online, but receiving support in real life was surreal for me. I'm a bit disappointed because I wanted my daughter's former fiancé to join the family as he's a lovely and sweet boy. But he has boundaries in a relationship that my daughter unfortunately crossed. As for my youngest, she's furious with me. She sent me a nasty voicemail saying that I ruined her life. Her friends and fiancé basically cut her off. Needless to say, I felt terribly sorry because I'd attempted to avoid this situation at all costs. I went through what she's experiencing now, and I know exactly what it feels like. I told my therapist about this, and she told me that the difference is that while I was the victim, my daughter brought this on herself. My therapist is probably right, but I can't stop this feeling of dread. I tried to call my daughter, but once I heard her father on the line, I hung up. He took it upon himself to let me know that my daughter is depressed because of my actions. I feel terrible for treating my daughter like this. My husband says that I should focus on myself, and I'm trying to, but I just can't stop worrying. I don't think that my daughter is safe when she's with her biological father. It's so crazy that two parents can raise a child and still the child ends up being more like the scumbag biological father than either of the people who raised her. That was r/Best of Redditor updates. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.